Today we're finally going to replace the leaky 3-point hitch lift cylinder on our 250 AS tractor. So this cylinder is actually off of our parts tractor, Olga. If you've seen some of the previous episodes, you'll be familiar with her. But I'm rebuilding this cylinder because I'm not ready to take the one off our functional tractor yet because I'm still using it. And then when I have this ready, I can just swap this out real quick and we won't lose any time on the actual working tractor. And then of course we can rebuild that one and keep a spare around. So the first thing I did was cap off the hydraulic lines and take her over to the pressure washer and blow all the grease and everything off. This is Teflon tape. Don't use that on your hydraulic fittings because A, you don't need it. What Teflon tape does, on B, you don't need it, and C, you don't need it. What Teflon tape does is, people think it's a thread sealer, but it's not. It's a thread lubricant. And these are hydraulic fittings. You don't need a thread lubricant. They'll just thread together just fine because they're still NPT fittings in this case. All the thread sealer does is, worst case scenario, you can get a chunk tucked away into your hydraulic system and sucked in and get a clog or get it buried down there in the cylinder, the piston or something, and you're in trouble. Don't use it on hydraulic fittings. You don't need to. It's not a thread sealer. If you need a thread sealer with NPT fittings, then you're doing something wrong because they're tapered, so they should naturally taper themselves together. Anywho, what we're gonna do now that it's cleaned off and we can see what we're doing is we're gonna take the top of this cylinder off and we're gonna start taking her apart. I mean, I've never rebuilt a Belarus cylinder like this before, but I'm sure it's a standard cylinder. I have a rebuild kit with the O-rings and everything. It's supposedly the proper kit. We'll find out. Take this clamp off. I'm gonna do my best to clean these parts up as I go. Basically, yeah, I'm gonna take as much apart of this as I can. I'm even going to take these fittings out, make sure everything's clean inside because of this Teflon tape. Make sure when you do this, you make as much of a mess as possible. Another reason to take this all apart is to make sure it gets completely flushed. There's old hydraulic oil in there. You can just see all that old Teflon tape. It just works up there sometimes. It doesn't even seal like people think it's going to because that's not what it's made to do. In this case, they even use Teflon tape up here, which, again, totally not necessary because the threads don't seal here. This is what seals is the flare fitting. So, you think you need thread sealer there, you're wrong. Hold on while I drain this hydraulic fluid into a safe container. Shh, don't tell anyone. I don't know why nothing grows in my yard. Just don't drink the water, you'll be fine. Now that we've drained that in an eco-friendly manner. Before you get after me for that, look at the Exxon Valdez. That's more than a bunch of people could spill in a lifetime. So I'd say I got a ways to go before I have any of the guilt of big corporations. I start pouring it on baby seals and things, then you can yell at me. Oh, so hot out here today, my camera overheated. Anyway, now we can separate this assembly. So we got the bottom here, and then we have the piston in the top. Looks like that O-ring in there is pretty well flattened. That's about to be about what I expected though, so we'll make sure this end of the cylinder is clear. So you can get a pick and take off that O-ring. It's pretty well flattened. It's very non-rubbery too, so the cylinder's probably never been rebuilt. There's also an O-ring down in there. Seals around the end of that tube. Washer comes out, which I didn't realize that was a washer, but then the O-ring. Don't lose this little metal ring, because usually they don't give you one of those in the kit. They give you the rubber pieces, but I don't know. I guess it depends which kit you get. I don't recommend doing this outside like I am. I would do it in a clean shop. Make sure your O-ring grooves are nice and clean. Looks like from the factory they might paint or coat the inside of this cylinder. See paint in there, but that just seems like a bad idea, because if it flakes off, I don't know, maybe it's a special sealant. I don't think it is. I think it's just paint. Make sure when you're putting it back together you don't get any loose paint back in there, obviously. So this is just, you know, whatever standard kit you can order online. So I'm just gonna lightly lubricate the new O-rings before I put them in. Put that aside. We'll deal with the next one. Make sure your tube is clear. Make sure it's clear. Now we're going to take the nut off the end of the piston here. Make sure you don't get this on backwards when you put it on. There's a good bit of pitting in the shaft there, but not much we can do about that. No. Oh, well, you can see that, but looks like, I don't know if it's metal quality or, yeah. Well, I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, not much I can do about that. So now it's just cleaning parts and replacing O-rings and seals. So there's a big one down in there. And of course there's another one here. Of course the same O-ring seal there, basically same as the other end. And down in here there's another O-ring down inside the piston land, or whatever you call it here, and of course the rings around there. So basically it's cleaning and getting all this stuff right. These shims, clean them up. They have some paint and stuff worked down in there, and I want them to be clean, so I'll make sure we have a clean stack. So yeah, I'll get back to you when all this stuff is cleaned and wiped, and make sure everything is lubed when we put it back together again. Obviously, you don't necessarily have to clean all this exterior stuff. These are actually outside the seals, but if you don't clean them, it's harder to tell if it's leaking when you're all done. So I like to start with a clean, fresh cylinder, and shims and washers and shafts and bushings and all that stuff. It's just a lot easier. I don't know if it's metal or machining quality or what, but I think I can see how these cylinders tend to leak if this is the way they're all machined. But I think it's the machining looks okay. I think it's the metal quality. I guess they just didn't have the same steel in Soviet Russia. I'll be interested to see the one from the 1994 tractor looks like when I take it apart. See if they were getting better steel. Don't forget this valve here. As you can see, that O-ring is very brittle. Just came right apart. You could get a leak there, and well, that could be your whole leak, and you might rebuild your whole cylinder thinking you have a leak somewhere else, and if you didn't replace all your rings, well, yeah. There is an O-ring down inside there that you need to replace as well. A little one right there. All right, so we got all our seals, O-rings, all that replaced. So it's time to put this thing back together. We already got our valve in up here. Now all we have to do is tighten this together again. We already started putting in the fittings, and then we have to put this collar back on, and then we're pretty much done. You don't have to make these tremendously tight. Primarily what we're doing is clamping the cylinder together. The O-rings are what really seals it, not necessarily the clamping pressure, but the clamping pressure does keep it from, exploding under hydraulic force. So, we want to prevent that. I didn't take out any of these passageway plugs here. If you really wanted to get inside, if it was gummed up or something in there, it wasn't. I looked down in. You could take those plugs out and really deep clean it if you needed to, but we don't need to. So now we can put our collar back on, and this just pushes the valve pin there. So we will finally clamp this down according to where the other one is when we get to that, so that it'll activate that switch at the right point. I don't remember. I should have marked it or something where it was, but we'll reference the other one with the measurements on the other one when we install it. And that's pretty much all there is to it, other than I gotta tighten these, give these fittings a real nice solid turn when it's mounted on the tractor. And I got my caps back on, so it's all sealed up for storage temporarily. And that's pretty much all there is to it. We can pack this up and install it on the tractor next chance we get. So moving to our tractor, you can see our cylinder on here is, well, it's very leaky. So we're gonna pull that off and we're gonna put our rebuilt cylinder on there, and hopefully she'll do the trick. So that's a quick little rundown on these hydraulic cylinders. That's pretty much standard, not much to them, but very nice versus, say, you know, most other tractors that have that lift, that hydraulic lift for the 3-point built into the transmission. So to access it, you have to basically pull the top of the transmission off. However, the advantage to having it inside the transmission would be if that system leaks a little bit, it just leaks into itself. But in this case, having the cylinder here gives you power up and power down. So if you have something like a hole auger or something, you can just power it right down into the ground, and you don't have to get back here and force it in yourself with lots of weight and force. So there are some advantages to this, but you know, that's pretty much all there is to it. Fairly simple. If you like what we're doing, feel free to subscribe. I'm sure we'll see more of this tractor on our channel, because I did notice as I'm using the loader and driving it around, there's a lot more weight on the front now, which I had thought, and I had wondered about it, but there's no way to know till you go ahead and do it. And I'd really like some power steering on this thing. So, you know, I'm a budget-minded person, so I'm gonna have to find the cheapest kit possible, or find a Belarus or another tractor with power steering already on it and take it. So I'm sure in the future, well, I'm not sure, but I hope in the future that we're gonna be putting power steering on this tractor too, in addition to maybe some other little things, cab and, you know, some other little improvements. But she's a great little tractor for right now, and since we got all the leaks buttoned up for now, she's good to go for a long time yet, maintenance wise. So as always, we'd appreciate it if you subscribe. It helps the channel grow, lets us know if we're doing a good job, and feel free to like, comment. We do appreciate it. I do read every comment, even if it doesn't look like it. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time.